6 months later, New Dawn approached its new home. The planet Kepler 442b hung in space like a blue and green jewel. After 4 years of travel and all the dangers they had faced, the colonists were finally going to have solid ground under their feet. Tejo stood at the viewing window in the engineering section. The planet looked beautiful. He could see oceans, continents, and white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. It would be a good home for the 50,000 people on the ship. Behind him, the atmospheric processors hummed quietly. They were working perfectly. All the ship's systems were running smoothly. It had been a good trip despite the emergencies. "Uncle Tejo!" a voice called behind him. He turned to see Lee Boram running toward him. She was carrying a folder full of drawings. At 8 years old, she had become the ship's unofficial artist. "I made something for you," she said, holding up her latest picture. The drawing showed a man in a maintenance uniform standing in front of a burning building. Children were holding his hands, looking up at him with smiling faces. At the top of the page, in careful letters, she had written, "Uncle Death helps everyone." "It is very good," Tejo said. "But why do you call me Uncle Death?" "That is what the aliens call you," Boram said. "But I do not think you are scary. You are nice. You help people." She showed him more drawings. In each one, a figure that looked like Tejo was helping different aliens. Some were crystal beings. Some had tentacles. Some looked like insects, but they were all smiling. "Where did you see these aliens?" Tejo asked. "On the communication screen," Boram said. "My daddy showed me. They send messages to our ship sometimes. They all want to meet Uncle Death." Tejo was surprised. He knew about the official communications with the Helix Confederation, but he did not know that individual aliens were sending personal messages. Captain Park had been having meetings with Ambassador Vector every week. The Confederation was helping them establish their new colony. They provided advanced technology for terraforming and planetary development. In return, humans would serve as rescue specialists for the Confederation. It was a good deal. But Tejo did not think much about politics or trade agreements. He was busy preparing the ship's systems for planetfall. "Uncle Tejo," Boram said, "when we live on the planet, will you still fix things?" "Of course," he said. "There will always be things that need fixing." "Good," she said, "because people need you." 3 days later, New Dawn entered orbit around Kepler 442b. The colonists began the long process of moving to their new world. Shuttles carried people and equipment down to the planet's surface. Soon there would be cities and farms where now there was only wilderness. Tejo was among the last to leave the ship. He wanted to make sure all systems were properly shut down. New Dawn would remain in orbit as a space station and emergency shelter. Everything had to be perfect. As his shuttle descended through the atmosphere, he could see the beginnings of the new colony. Temporary shelters dotted the landscape. Construction vehicles were clearing areas for permanent buildings. It looked like humanity was going to thrive here. The shuttle landed at the main colony site. Tejo stepped out and breathed real planetary air for the first time in 4 years. It smelled of grass and flowers and growing things. It was good to be home. Captain Park was waiting for him at the landing pad. "Tejo, there is something you need to see." He led Tejo to the communications center. The main screen showed dozens of alien ships approaching the system. They were from many different species, all members of the Helix Confederation. "They are coming to welcome us," Captain Park explained. "But more than that, they want to meet you personally. Every captain wants to shake hands with Uncle Death." Tejo was embarrassed. "I am not famous. I just fix things." "That is exactly why you are famous," Captain Park said. "In a galaxy full of warriors and politicians and merchants, you are something new. Someone who helps without asking for anything in return." Over the following days, alien visitors came to the new colony. They brought gifts and technology and offers of friendship. but they all wanted to meet Tae-ho. A Vel crystal singer composed a song about the heat walker who saved their observers. A Nith poet wrote an epic about the flame swimmer who feared nothing. Click warriors presented him with a ceremonial weapon and called him Sharp Death That Helps, their highest honor for a protector. Each species had their own version of his story, but the core was always the same: a human who walked into danger to help others. A being who thought he was just doing his job, but who had shown the galaxy what true courage looked like. Dr. Yoon finally gave up trying to understand how Tae-ho survived things that should have killed him. Her conclusion was simple: some humans were just tougher than others. Tae-ho was one of the tough ones, but Tae-ho himself never thought he was special. When reporters asked him about his adventures, he always gave the same answer: people needed help. I had the right skills. It was my job to help them. The legend grew beyond anything he had actually done. Stories spread of Uncle Death rescuing entire planets from disaster. Children across the galaxy drew pictures of him fighting monsters and fixing broken spaceships. Some stories were based on real events. Others were pure imagination. But all the stories had one thing in common: Uncle Death never gave up. No matter how dangerous the situation, no matter how impossible the odds, he always found a way to help. The real impact was not the stories themselves, but what they inspired. Young aliens who heard the tales decided to become engineers and rescue workers. Space crews started pushing themselves harder during emergencies, asking, what would Uncle Death do? The phrase, walking through fire, became galactic slang for going above and beyond to help someone. When people wanted to praise someone's dedication, they said that person had Uncle Death spirit. On the new colony, Tae-ho settled into his normal routine. He maintained the power systems and water processors. He fixed broken equipment and trained new technicians. It was satisfying work. Sometimes alien ships would have emergencies while passing through the system. The crews always asked specifically for Uncle Death to help them. Tae-ho would take a shuttle up to their ship and fix whatever was broken. To him, it was just extending good hospitality to visitors. To the aliens, it was proof that the legends were true. Uncle Death would always come when people needed help. Years passed. The colony grew into a proper city. Children like Bo-Ram grew up and had children of their own. But they all knew the story of Uncle Death, how he had saved their ship during the long journey, how he had shown the galaxy that humans could be trusted. Late at night, when Tae-ho was alone in his workshop, he sometimes wondered about his legacy. Not the stories and legends, but the real impact of his work. How many people were alive because he had fixed a broken system? How many children had grown up safely because he had not given up when things seemed impossible? It was hard to measure, but he thought it might be worth something. The galaxy had become a little bit safer because someone was willing to walk through fire to help others. Not because he was special or powerful or fearless, but because it was the right thing to do. And in the end, Tae-ho thought, that was enough. That was what being human meant. Not giving up, not walking away when people needed help, just doing the job, no matter what it cost, even if it meant walking through fire. The message came from the Helix Confederation Council 3 days after the cold incident. Captain Park read it twice before calling his senior staff to the bridge. They want to meet, he said. Official first contact. Ambassador Vector is requesting permission to board our ship. Lieutenant Choi looked worried. Is this about the accidents? The heat, radiation, and cold incidents? Probably, Captain Park said. They have been watching us for weeks. They know about Tae-ho. Dr. Yoon was studying her medical reports again. She had run every test she could think of on Tae-ho after each incident. The results were always the same. Completely normal human. Biology. I do not understand it, she said. He should have died 3 times. His body shows no special adaptations, no genetic modifications, nothing that explains his survival. Where is Tae-ho now? Captain Park asked. Fixing a water recycler in Section E, Lieutenant Choi said. He does not know about the alien request yet. Captain Park made his decision. Send the message. Tell Ambassador Vector he can come aboard tomorrow. But I want Taeho here when they meet. The next morning, Taeho was confused when he was called to the bridge. He had been working on the atmospheric processors. They were running smoothly, but needed regular maintenance. Am I in trouble? He asked Captain Park. No, the captain said, but some very important aliens want to meet you. The alien shuttle docked with New Dawn at exactly noon. Ambassador Vector came aboard with 2 assistants. The Keth were tall and thin with blue skin and large black eyes. They moved gracefully but seemed nervous. Captain Park met them in the main conference room. Taeho was there too, wearing his cleanest work uniform. He still smelled faintly of machine oil. Ambassador Vector, Captain Park said. Welcome aboard. Thank you, Captain, Vector said in perfect English. His voice was soft and musical. This is a historic moment, first official contact between our species. He turned to look at Taeho. His large eyes studied the human engineer with obvious interest. And this is Kim Taeho, he said. The one our people call Uncle Death. Taeho looked confused. Uncle Death? I do not understand. Vector sat down at the conference table. His assistants placed recording devices around the room. Your reputation has spread across the galaxy, he said. Every species in the Helix Confederation has heard the stories. The human who walks through fire. The one who swims in radiation. The being who freezes death itself cannot touch. I am just a maintenance engineer, Taeho said. I fix things when they break. Yes, Vector said. That is what makes you so remarkable. He activated a holographic display. It showed dozens of different aliens. Each had strange symbols floating above their heads. These are the names our people have given you, Vector explained. The Vel call you Heat Walker. The Nith say Flame Swimmer. The Click have named you Sharp Death That Helps. But the name that has stuck is Uncle Death. Why Uncle? Dr. Yoon asked. Because he helps, Vector said simply. Death is feared by all species. But this human walks with death and uses it to save lives. He is like a kind uncle who protects children from monsters. Taeho was embarrassed. I just do my job. When people are in danger, I help them. That is the point, Vector said. You do not think you are special, but you have done things that should be impossible. He changed the holographic display. Now, it showed recordings from the 3 incidents. Taeho walking through plasma fire, working in deadly radiation, surviving freezing cold. Our scientists have studied these recordings, Vector continued. The heat should have vaporized you. The radiation should have destroyed your DNA. The cold should have frozen your blood solid. Yet you survived all 3. Dr. Yoon leaned forward. How is that possible? I have examined him after each incident. His biology is completely normal. That is the mystery, Vector said. We have run simulations using our most advanced computers. No known species could survive what he has survived. Yet his body shows no special adaptations. Captain Park was getting worried. Are you saying humans are some kind of threat? No, Vector said quickly. Not a threat, but definitely not normal. Our observers have been watching your ship for months. We wanted to understand what you are capable of. The accidents, Taeho said suddenly. They were not accidents, were they? Vector looked uncomfortable. The coolant leak was arranged. We needed to test your limits, but I swear the other incidents were real accidents. Captain Park stood up angrily. You put our people at risk for a test? Our people were at risk too, Vector said. My observers nearly died in that cold. I did not know if your engineer would be able to save them. But I had to know, he continued. The Confederation Council was afraid. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Humans building colonies in impossible places, surviving disasters that would destroy other species. We needed to know if you were dangerous." "And what did you decide?" Captain Park asked. Vectar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That we were asking the wrong question." He stood up and walked to the viewing window. Outside, alien ships could be seen floating in space. "We asked if humans were dangerous," he said. "But the real question is whether you are valuable. The answer is yes, more valuable than any species we have ever encountered." "What do you mean?" Dr. Yoon asked. "Think about it," Vectar said. "Every species has weaknesses. The Keth cannot handle heat. The Vel are vulnerable to vibration. The Nith need water to survive. But humans just keep going no matter what happens." He turned, back to face them. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. Space is full of radiation, extreme temperatures, toxic gases, and 1,000 other things that can kill. Most species need special equipment and careful planning to survive. But humans," he said, looking directly at Taeho, "humans just walk into danger and get the job done." Taeho shrugged. "Someone has to fix things when they break." "Exactly," Vectar said. "That is why the Council has made a decision. We want to offer humanity full membership in the Helix Confederation." Captain Park was surprised. "Full membership? Most species have to start as junior members." "Most species cannot do what humans do," Vectar said. "We want you as partners, equals. We need people who can go places we cannot go, do things we cannot do." "What would that mean for us?" Captain Park asked. "Protection, trade, technology sharing," Vectar listed. "But most importantly, you would be our rescue specialists. When disasters happen, when people are trapped in impossible situations, we would call on humans to help." Taeho finally understood. "You want us to be the maintenance crew for the galaxy." Vectar smiled. It was the first time any human had seen a Keth smile. "In a way, yes. The beings who fix things when they break. The ones who help when no one else can." "I like that job," Taeho said. As the meeting continued, little Lee Boram was in her family's quarters drawing pictures. She had heard the grown-ups talking about Uncle Taeho and the aliens. She drew him walking through fire to save people. She drew him surrounded by stars, helping aliens fix their ships. She did not know that children across the galaxy were drawing similar pictures. The legend of Uncle Death had spread far beyond the human ship. It had become something bigger than one man or one rescue. It had become hope. Hope that when bad things happened, someone would come to help. Someone who would not give up no matter how dangerous things got. Someone who thought he was just doing his job. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning. At least, that is what it looked like. Taeho was drinking coffee in the engineering break room when the alarm started. This time the sound was different. Not the sharp emergency tone, but a low, steady warning. System failure. Something big. He grabbed his tablet and checked the ship's status. Coolant leak in section D8. A massive one. The temperature was dropping fast. Too fast. Captain Park's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel evacuate section D8 immediately. We have a major coolant system failure. Temperature is dropping to dangerous levels." Taeho was already moving. Section D8 was where they stored the backup life support equipment. If that froze, half the ship would lose air and heat. But more importantly, there were people trapped there. He reached the command post as the evacuation was finishing. Lieutenant Choi was checking her list. "Everyone out?" Captain Park asked. "Almost," she said. "But we have a problem. The alien. Observers were doing an inspection in the deep storage area. The blast doors sealed automatically when the leak started. They are trapped." Taeho looked at the temperature readings. Section D8 was already at minus 50 degrees Celsius. It was still dropping. The coolant was super compressed liquid designed to work in the coldest parts of space. When it leaked, it made everything around it freeze solid. "How long until we can get the doors open?" he asked. 6 hours minimum, Captain Park said. maybe more. We have to drain all the coolant first. The aliens will not last that long, Dr. Yoon said. Nothing can survive in those temperatures for 6 hours. Tae-ho was already putting on his cold weather gear. What species are they? 3 Vel observers, Lieutenant Choi said. They are crystalline beings, but even they cannot handle that much cold. The Vel were made of living crystal. They were tougher than most organic species. But liquid coolant could freeze anything. I need the heavy Arctic suit, Tae-ho said. Tae-ho, no, Dr. Yoon said. You survived fire and radiation, but this is different. This cold will freeze your blood in minutes, even with the best suit. Maybe, he said, but I have to try. The heavy Arctic suit was designed for working on ice planets. It had heating, elements, and thick insulation. It could keep a person alive in minus 100 degrees for maybe an hour. But the readings from section D8 showed minus 80 degrees and still dropping. Tae-ho put on the suit and checked his equipment. Heating packs, emergency oxygen, tools for opening blast doors. Everything he would need for a quick rescue. Stay in contact, Captain Park said. If your suit fails, get out immediately. Understood. Tae-ho opened the door to section D8. Cold air rushed out like a living thing. His helmet display immediately showed warnings. External temperature minus 95 degrees Celsius. His breath made clouds inside his helmet. He stepped into the frozen section. Everything was covered in ice. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. It looked like an ice cave. His boots crunched on the frozen metal. The cold was incredible. Even with the Arctic suit, he could feel it trying to get in. His heating elements were working at maximum, but it was not enough. The cold was too strong. He walked deeper into the section. Ice crystals formed in the air around him. They looked beautiful, but deadly. Each breath hurt his lungs, even with the suit's heating system. The blast doors were covered in thick ice. Tae-ho used his tools to chip it away. The metal underneath was so cold it would freeze skin instantly. But he kept working. Inside his suit, warning lights were flashing. Power level dropping, heat failing, external temperature now minus 120 degrees. His suit was not designed for this. But Tae-ho kept working. Behind the blast doors were 3 alien beings. They were counting on him. It took 2 hours to get the doors open. By then, his suit had failed completely. The heating elements were dead. His oxygen system was freezing. But he was still alive. Inside the storage room, he found the 3 Vel observers. They were huddled together, their crystal bodies dim and cold. But they were alive. "Help us," one of them whispered. "So cold. Cannot." "Move!" Tae-ho picked up the first Vel. The alien was surprisingly light but very cold. Cold enough to freeze metal. He carried it toward the exit. The trip back was harder. His suit was failing more each minute. Ice was forming inside his helmet. His hands were numb, but he kept moving. He reached the safe area and handed the first Vel to the medical team. Then he went back for the second one. This trip was worse. His suit's life support was completely gone. He was breathing the frozen air directly. It hurt his throat and lungs. But the second Vel needed help. By the third trip, Tae-ho was running, on willpower alone. His equipment was useless. The cold should have killed him hours ago. But he walked back into the frozen section one more time. The last Vel was barely conscious. "Why?" it whispered as he picked it up. "Why risk death for us?" "Because you needed help," Tae-ho said simply. When he finally emerged with the third alien, he had been in the frozen section for 6 hours. The temperature had reached minus 150 degrees Celsius. His suit was a block of ice, but he was alive, and all 3 aliens were safe. Dr. Yoon ran every test she could think of. Tae-ho's body temperature was normal. His blood was flowing normally. He showed no signs of frostbite or hypothermia. "This is impossible," she said. "You should be dead. Frozen solid." "I feel fine," Tae-ho said. "Just tired." And hungry. Is there any hot soup? The three Vel observers recovered quickly once they warmed up, but they kept staring at Tae-ho with their crystalline eyes. They had felt the cold that nearly killed them. They could not understand how a soft, organic being had survived it. What Tae-ho did not know was that the coolant leak had not been an accident. Deep in the alien observation ship, Ambassador Vector was reviewing the test results with growing alarm. "The leak was perfectly timed," he said to Mortin. "Our people were in exactly the right position. The human responded exactly as predicted." "But, sir, the cold was real," Mortin said. "Our observers nearly died. If the human had not rescued them—" "They were wearing emergency heating units under their robes," Vector admitted. "They could have survived for 8 hours, but they did not know that. The fear was real." Mortin looked shocked. "You used our own people as bait?" "I had to know," Vector said. "The human has now survived heat that would melt our ships, radiation that would sterilize a planet, and cold that would freeze our hardest metals. This should not be possible." He pulled up the medical scans they had taken secretly. Tae-ho's biology was completely normal for a human. No special adaptations, no unusual genetics, just an ordinary maintenance worker who refused to die. "What, do we tell the council?" Mortin asked. Vector was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "We tell them the truth. Humans are either the most dangerous species in the galaxy or the most valuable allies we could ever find. Which do you think they are?" Vector thought about the human walking into impossible cold to save 3 aliens he did not even know. The human who called it just helping. "I think," he said slowly, "that might be the same thing." 3 days after the plasma conduit rescue, Ambassador Vector sat in his private quarters reviewing the recordings. His long fingers moved over the data pad with nervous energy. The Keth were not built for heat. Their cold blue skin would freeze, solid before it could burn. What they had witnessed made no sense. The communication array chimed. His assistant, a younger Keth named Mortin, entered the room. "Ambassador, the trade captains are asking questions," Mortin said. "Word has spread to other ships." Vector was not surprised. The Helix Confederation had hundreds of ships in this system. Traders, explorers, and diplomats from dozens of species. They all monitored human communications. The story of the Firewalker was spreading. "What are they saying?" he asked. Mortin consulted his data pad. "The Vel are calling him the Heat Walker. They believe he defies thermal death itself. The Nith have named him the Flame Swimmer. They think he moves through fire like they move through water." Vector nodded. The crystalline Vel understood heat and cold better than most species. If they were impressed, this was significant. "What about the Clique?" he asked. "They call him Sharp Death That Helps," Mortin said. "They believe he must be an apex predator who chooses to protect instead of hunt." This worried Vector most. The insect-like Clique understood predators. They had evolved on a world full of dangerous creatures. If they thought humans were predators, other species would listen. "Has anyone made contact with the human ship directly?" he asked. "No, sir. Your orders were to observe only." Vector was glad he had been cautious. But now he needed more information. The Confederation Council would want answers. They would want to know if humans were a threat. On the human ship, Tae-ho was having a normal day. He had repaired 3 air recyclers, fixed a water pump, and replaced some worn cables. Standard maintenance work. He did not know that alien ships were discussing him across the system. The problem started after lunch. Captain Park called him to the bridge. The main screen showed a massive crack in the ship's outer hull. It was in section F3, near the hydroponics. "Gardens. Micrometeorite strike," the captain explained. "Small but fast. It punched right through our armor." Tae-ho studied the readings. The crack was growing. In a few hours it would breach the inner hull. Then section F3 would be exposed. to the vacuum of space. 2,000 people lived there. We need to seal it from outside, he said. That means a spacewalk, Captain Park said, in an area with high radiation from the damaged engines. Our best suits can handle maybe 2 hours out there. Tejo looked at the radiation readings. They were very high enough to kill a person, in 30 minutes even with a good suit, but the repair would take at least 4 hours. I can do it, he said. Dr. Yoon was on the bridge. She had been following Tejo around since the fire incident. She shook her head. The radiation levels will cook you, she said. This is even more dangerous than the plasma fire. Maybe, Tejo said, but people need that section sealed. 2 hours later, he was floating outside the ship in a radiation suit. The stars looked beautiful, but he did not have time to enjoy them. His radiation detector was clicking fast, too fast. The crack was bigger than expected, 20 meters long and growing. He would need to weld metal patches over the entire area. It would take time. Tejo attached his safety line and got to work. The welding torch made bright sparks in the darkness. Each patch had to be perfect. Any leak would kill everyone in Section F3. After 1 hour, his radiation alarm started beeping. He turned it off. The sound was distracting. After 2 hours, his suit's computer told him to return immediately. He ignored it. After 3 hours, the computer started shutting down non-essential systems to preserve power. Tejo kept welding. After 4 hours, his communication system failed. The bridge could no longer talk to him, but they could still track his location. He was still working. Inside the ship, Dr. Yoon watched his vital signs on her medical scanner. His heart rate was steady. His brain activity was normal. By all rights, he should have been dead 2 hours ago. How is this possible? She asked Captain Park. The captain had no answer. He was watching the repair progress on his screen. Tejo was doing good work. The patches were holding. But no human should be able to work in that much radiation. After 6 hours, Tejo finally came back inside. His suit was damaged by radiation, but he was fine. The crack was completely sealed. Section F3 was safe. Radiation exposure? Dr. Yoon asked as she scanned him. Within normal limits, her equipment reported. She ran the scan again. Same result. Somehow Tejo had absorbed enough radiation to kill 10 people, but his body showed no damage. I need a shower and some food, he said. Then I should check the air recyclers in Section G. He left Dr. Yoon staring at her scanner in confusion. On the alien observation ship, Ambassador Vector was updating his report. The human had now survived. Impossible heat and deadly radiation. Both feats were beyond the capabilities of any known species. Sir, Mortin said, we are receiving messages from across the fleet. Every species has heard about the human now. They want to know what we plan to do, Vector thought carefully. The Confederation had rules about contact with new species. First they observed. Then they tested. Only then did they make official contact. Prepare the testing chamber, he said. It is time to see what humans are really capable of. What kind of test? Mortin asked. Vector studied the data about human biology. They seemed to have no special adaptations, no thick skin, no radiation resistance, no heat immunity. Yet they survived things that should kill them. Cold, he said finally. We will test their resistance to extreme cold. Mortin looked surprised. But sir, your people are cold adapted. If humans can survive heat and radiation, surely they can survive cold too. Maybe, Vector said, but every species has limits. We need to find theirs. He did not tell Mortin the real reason for the test. The Confederation Council was scared. They had received reports from across the galaxy. Humans were spreading to new systems. They built colonies in impossible places. They survived disasters that would wipe out other species. Some council members thought humans were too dangerous to leave alone. Others wanted to recruit them as allies. But first they needed to understand what they were dealing with. The test would tell them if humans had weaknesses. And if they did not, the Confederation would have to decide what to do about a species that seemed impossible to kill. But Tejo knew nothing about alien politics or secret tests. He was busy fixing a broken pipe in Section G. It was leaking, coolant, and making a mess. Just another day of keeping people safe and the ship running. He did not know that his simple willingness to help others was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy. The alarm woke Tejo from deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his small room. The sound was sharp and loud. It meant emergency. It meant people were in danger. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his emergency kit. The alarm code told him what was wrong. Plasma conduit explosion, Section B12. That was where many families lived. Tejo ran through the corridors. Other crew members were running too, but they were going the other way, away from Section B12. That was never a good sign. He reached the emergency command post. Captain Park Ji-woo was there with other officers. They all looked scared. The main screen showed a map of Section B12. It was glowing red. "How many people?" Tejo asked. 30, said Lieutenant Choi Soo-jin. "Families with children. The plasma conduit burst 20 minutes ago. The whole section is filling with superheated gas." Tejo looked at the temperature readings. 900 degrees, Celsius and rising. The metal walls were starting to melt. Nothing could live in that heat. "What about the rescue teams?" he asked. Captain Park shook his head. "Too dangerous. Our best heat suits can handle maybe 200 degrees for a few minutes. This is 900 degrees. The suits would melt before we got halfway there." "So we just wait?" Tejo asked. "The gas will burn itself out eventually," the captain said. "But not for hours, maybe 6 or 7 hours." Tejo looked at the screen again. 30 people. He thought about the children. They were probably scared. Their parents were probably telling them everything would be okay. But everyone knew the truth. Nobody could survive that heat for 6 hours. "I need a heat suit," Tejo said. "Did you hear what I said?" Captain Park asked. "The suits will not work. This is impossible." "I need the best suit we have," Tejo said again. The captain stared at him. "Tejo, you cannot save them. Nobody can save them. The temperature is too high." "Maybe," Tejo said, "but I have to try." He walked to the equipment room. Lieutenant Choi followed him. She helped him put on the heaviest heat suit on the ship. It was designed for working near the plasma engines. It could handle extreme temperatures. "For short periods. This is crazy," she said as she checked his equipment. "The suit might last 15 minutes in there. Maybe 20 if you are lucky." "Then I work fast," Tejo said. He walked back to Section B12. The corridor outside was already hot. Paint was peeling off the walls. The air shimmered like it does over a fire. The door to Section B12 was glowing orange. It was so hot it had changed color. Tejo's suit immediately started beeping warnings. He opened the door. Heat hit him like a hammer. His helmet display showed numbers that did not make sense. External temperature, 934 degrees Celsius. His suit was rated for 250 degrees maximum. But Tejo walked into the section anyway. Everything was on fire. The air itself seemed to burn. Metal beams sagged from the heat. The floor was soft under his boots. If he stood still too long, he would sink into it. He could hear voices, people calling for help. They were in the emergency shelter at the far end of the section. The shelter was designed to protect people from accidents, but not from this much heat. Tejo walked through the burning section. His suit was already starting to fail. The outer layer was melting. Warning lights flashed on his helmet display, but his legs kept moving. He reached the emergency shelter. The door was so hot he could not touch it even with his gloves. He used a metal bar to pry it open. Inside were 30 people. Men, women, children. They were huddled together in the small space. When they saw him, they started crying with relief. "Uncle." "Tejo!" A little girl ran to him. It was Lee Boram. She was 8 years old. Her family lived 3 doors down from his quarters. "It is okay," he told her. "I am going to get everyone out." The adults looked at him with hope and fear. They could see his suit melting. They knew he should already be dead. "How is this possible?" asked Bo-Ram's father, Lee Dong-soo. "No one can survive this heat." Tae-ho did not answer. He was busy calculating. 30 people, 2 at a time. That meant 15 trips through the burning section. His suit would not last that long, but he had to try. He picked up Bo-Ram and her baby brother. "Hold on tight," he told them. "Do not let go, no matter what." He carried them through the flames. The children closed their eyes and held on. Tai-ho's suit was failing completely now. Parts of it were falling off, but he kept walking. He reached the safe corridor and handed the children to the rescue team. They stared at him in shock. His suit was mostly gone. His hair was singed. But he was alive. "Get them to medical," he said. Then he turned around and walked back into the fire. Trip after trip he made through the burning section. Each time his equipment was worse. Each time the heat was stronger. But each time he brought out 2 more people, the rescue team stopped, asking how it was possible. They just took the people he brought and sent them to safety. On his 8th trip, Tai-ho carried out an old man and woman. The man was unconscious from the heat. The woman was barely breathing. But they were alive. "Thank you," she whispered as the medical team took her away. Tae-ho nodded and went back for more. By his 15th trip, his suit was completely gone. He was wearing just his regular clothes. The heat should have killed him instantly. But he kept walking through the flames like they were not there. He brought out the last 2 people, a young mother and her teenage son. They were the worst off. They had been closest to the plasma leak, but they were breathing. When Tae-ho finally came out, for the last time the rescue team was silent. They had watched him walk through temperatures that would melt steel. They had watched him do it for 6 hours straight. Captain Park checked the readings. "External temperature peaked at 1200 degrees Celsius, he said quietly. "That should have vaporized you." Tae-ho sat down heavily. He was tired and thirsty. His skin was red from the heat, but not burned. "Everyone got out safely," he said. "That is what matters." Dr. Yoon examined him. His temperature was normal. His heartbeat was normal. Everything about him was normal except for one thing. He should have been dead 5 hours ago. "How?" she asked. Tae-ho shrugged. "I had work to do." Far away in their hidden observation room, the alien visitors watched in complete silence. They had recorded everything. A human had walked through fire that would destroy their strongest materials. He had done it not once, but 30 times, and he acted like it was just part of his job. Ambassador Vektar made a note in his report. This species was more dangerous than they had thought, or more valuable. He was not sure which scared him more. Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of the maintenance shaft. The metal ladder was warm under his hands. Too warm. That was not a good sign. He had been working on the atmospheric processors for 6 hours. The readings on his tablet showed the same problem. Temperature rising, pressure dropping. Something was very wrong with the main engines. Tae-ho walked through the corridors of the colony ship New Dawn. The ship was huge. It carried 50,000 people from Earth. Families with children, old people, young couples hoping for a new life. They were all traveling to a planet called Kepler 442b. It would be their new home. But first they had to get there. The ship had been traveling for 3 years. Tae-ho knew every pipe and wire on the engineering levels. He knew the sound the engines made when they were happy. He knew the smell of the air recyclers when they worked well. Right now, nothing sounded right. He stopped at a viewing window. Outside was empty space. Stars everywhere, but no planets nearby. They were supposed to be in the Kepler system by now. Instead, they were stuck in the Vega system. The main engines had failed 2 weeks ago. Captain Park Ji-woo had called it a minor problem. He told the colonists not to worry. but Tae-ho had seen the damage reports. This was not minor. His tablet beeped. Another temperature warning. Sections. C7 was getting too hot. If it got much hotter, the life support systems would shut down. 3,000 people lived in that section. Tae-ho sighed. He was tired, but people needed him. He picked up his toolbox and headed toward Section C7. The corridors got quieter as he moved deeper into the ship. Most people were sleeping. It was night cycle according to the ship's schedule, but emergencies did not care about schedules. He reached the entrance to Section C7. A red warning light flashed above the door. The sign said, "Danger, high temperature zone, authorized personnel only." Tae-ho checked his equipment. He had a standard emergency suit. It would protect him for maybe 30 minutes in extreme heat. The readings showed temperatures inside. That would cook a person in 5 minutes. He put on the suit anyway. The door hissed open. Heat hit him like a wall. His helmet display immediately showed warnings. Temperature, 78 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 95%. The air was like breathing soup. Tae-ho walked into the section. His boots made wet sounds on the metal floor. Condensation covered everything. The walls were hot enough to burn skin. He found the problem quickly. A coolant pipe had cracked. Hot fluid was spraying everywhere. The pipe carried superheated coolant from the main engines. When it leaked, the whole section turned into an oven. The repair was simple but dangerous. He had to get close to the leak, close enough to touch it. The spraying coolant was hot enough to melt metal. Tae-ho opened his toolbox. His hands were steady. He had done repairs like this before, not this dangerous, but similar. The key was to work fast and not think about what could go wrong. He reached toward the broken pipe. His suit's temperature alarm started beeping. The sound was annoying, so he turned it off. He needed to concentrate. The pipe was easy to reach, but hard to hold. The metal was so hot it glowed. Tae-ho wrapped emergency tape around the crack. The tape started melting immediately, but it held long enough for him to attach a clamp. The spraying stopped. The temperature readings on his helmet began dropping slowly. Tae-ho checked his work. The repair would hold until they could do something permanent. Section C7 was safe for now. He walked back toward the exit. His suit was damaged from the heat. The outer layer was partly melted, but he was alive, and the job was done. The door opened, and cooler air rushed in. Tae-ho pulled off his helmet and took a deep breath. His hair was soaked with sweat. His clothes were wet. But he felt good. 3,000 people would sleep safely tonight. Tae-ho, a voice called his name. He turned around. Dr. Yoon Hee-won was walking toward him. She was the chief medical officer for this section of the ship. She looked worried. "I saw the temperature readings," she said. "Are you okay? Those levels should have killed you." Tae-ho shrugged. "The suit worked fine. The repair is finished. Section C7 is safe now." Dr. Yoon looked at his melted suit. "This is not fine. Look at your equipment. How are you even alive?" "Work fast," Tae-ho said. "And I had good equipment." It was not completely true. The equipment was standard issue, nothing special. Tae-ho just knew how to push things to their limits. He had been doing it his whole life. Dr. Yoon wanted to examine him, but Tae-ho said no. He had other work to do, more systems to check, more repairs to make. He went back to his quarters to change clothes and get new equipment. Tomorrow there would be more problems. There were always more problems on a ship this old, traveling this far from home. As he walked through the corridors, he passed families sleeping behind thin walls, children dreaming of their new planet, parents hoping for a better future. They trusted the ship to keep them safe. They trusted people like Tae-ho to make sure the air kept flowing and the heat kept working. It was a big responsibility, but Tae-ho did not mind. This was his job, keeping people alive, making sure they reached their new home safely. He did not know that far away in another part of the ship alien visitors had been watching. They had sensors that could read heat signatures through the ship's hull. They had watched a human walk into temperatures that should have killed him instantly. The aliens were confused. Their own species could not survive such heat. Nothing they knew could survive such heat. But the human had walked in, fixed the problem, and walked out like it was normal. They made notes in their reports. This human behavior was unusual. It needed more study. But Tejo knew nothing about alien visitors or reports. He only knew that tomorrow would bring new problems, and people would need his help. He had work to do.